Hey and welcome to this video. If it's your first time here, my name is Lachlan Rowson.
I'm Raf.
And we are Australia's #1 health and fitness podcast, The Mind Muscle Project. So if you're here, what you can expect from us in the future is...
Well, we interview the biggest names in fitness. On Mondays, we've had Matt Fraser, Brent Fikowski, Pat Vellner, pretty much all the boys.
On Wednesdays, we talk about our athletic experience in our mid to early 20s. We've been to regionals multiple times. We talk about the most current and the most exciting new stuff in our industry.
And on Fridays, on the podcast, we delve into fitness business. So we've started 3 gyms ourselves, and we talk about where we want to go with them, how we're doing it, and how to succeed in the fitness industry.
So if you want to see more from us in the future, more exciting content, interviews, we've got heaps of stuff. You can go to the links below. We've got our website. We've got the top 10 most downloaded podcasts of all time. You guys will really enjoy those. And we've got plenty more content on our Instagram, so go there as well. And if you like videos, subscribe to the YouTube channel down below. All right, cool. My Muscle Project, welcome. We have Pat Vellner in the studio today. He's fresh. How many days out? 3 days out from the games, finishing. So his highest finish ever. And as we mentioned on the show on Wednesday, he's part of a very elite group of people, two people in fact, that have only ever stood on the podium while competing at the games. Or was it 3? Is Froning the third?
I think we had 3.
3. Yeah, so to only have participated and only have stepped on the podium. So maybe the actual literal stepping on the podium didn't quite happen how it should have last year, but definitely podium legit as last year. So Pat, thank you for being on the show again. And firstly, just big congratulations. Well done.
Thanks very much, guys.
How did it feel to get, I mean, it seems like it would be a tenfold feeling, right? Because of what happened last year, missing out, not being able to get that honor of standing on the podium, and then obviously going one place even better.
Yeah, it definitely was really nice. It was, I think that I made a point this year of setting that as a goal that I wanted to make it back on the podium, and I knew that I could. And I definitely wanted to try to push for the top as best as I could. And I think that the way things turned out, Matt's still the man. I think it's undeniable. And as best as we can all try, I think this was a race for second place again this year. So having done that, I think I'm super pumped. And yeah, like what happened last year, definitely, you know, I the more I think about it and I get asked about it, which has been a lot in the last year, like it doesn't bother me that much. Like it doesn't affect me that much. I think I'm a very eyes forward kind of person. And it never really, it never really mattered a ton. It was like, it sucks for sure. But I think I was always focused, like from the next day after the games last year, that, okay, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again and do whatever I can to not leave it up to odds like that, you know? And so I think it was definitely awesome. And I think that, my honest feeling about it is that I think the fans felt more of that than I did, of being like, oh, I'm really happy that he got to experience that now again, that what he was robbed of before. Like, I mean, I had a lot of stuff going on during the games this year that I was dealing with. So to me, I was happy to have gotten through the weekend and finished where I thought I belonged and where I ended up. But yeah, there was like a bit of a sense of relief. And I think there kind of always is at the end of the games. It's a long season and it's a long preparation process. And at the end of it, I think probably if you ask any of the athletes, no matter where they finish, there's a bit of a sense of relief when you finish the competition and like it's done and you can go take whatever you learned and go try to process that and move on to next year. But for sure, I think there was a sense of release, and I think a relief. And I felt this year the pressure of, you know, a lot of people were calling my name to try to push Matt and to finish very high. So I was happy that I was able to deliver to a certain degree, but yeah, there was a lot of things happened during the games this year. So it was definitely relieving to finish and be in second place, frankly.
It is crazy to think back. I was thinking, you know, we were at the games 3 years ago when you came second. And I remember we were at the after party. Third to Ben. I remember we were at the after party. And you were like, oh, I was like, who is that guy that came on the podium? And I'm lucky pointing you out. I'm like, I don't think that's the guy. This is crazy to see how far, like, I don't think many people were cheering your name 3 years ago, like, or could even remember your name. And now, like, everyone knows Pat Vellner.
It's undeniable now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I felt that this year, I think even more than last year for sure, that there was a lot more crowd support in my corner this year, and it was cool. It was really, really cool to see that shift. And again, I think I had some hiccups over the course of the competition, and I think that almost made it stronger, kind of like every event that I could come back and do something well. People were excited for me, and they were excited to see how well I could rally and be resilient and keep putting one foot in front of the other and kind of trudging through the weekend. So it was great. And then you're right. Like, I think 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I probably only had like my family there at the games that really did for me for real. So it changed a lot, and like, we feel that. So it's cool.
Yeah, nice.
Do you want to make sure it's walking around the venues these days?
That's good. We'll get into basically the lead up to the games, and then we'll go in detail to it. But before we get into that, we did speak to your coach, Michelle. We spoke to her in person at the Pacific region when she was out there supporting her athletes. And then also we interviewed her as well after we spoke to you. And there was a funny part of the interview, or at least in person, I forget where we actually spoke about it, but she was saying, man, it's so hard to coach Pat because he barely does any of his program because he's so busy studying all the time. And I guess my question is, how true was that leading up to, say, from like the Open through to regionals to the games? Like, following her program, I understand that, maybe during the off season, you're probably a little bit less diligent. You're probably focusing a little bit more on chiropractics and your studies and work. And then it kind of shifts a little bit. At what point does that shift happen?
I think that's a funny thing for her to say. I feel like I do a pretty good job of doing everything I do. But there's times where you're right. Like, there's just a priority shift depending on the period of the year. In order for me to do both and fit things in together, it's just how it has to be. It's both things take up a lot of space. And I sort of, I'll just, like, that's how I describe it to people is, I mean, in the off season, my CrossFit bubble gets a lot smaller. Like, right after the games, it's non-existent. And I have to go back you take advantage of just living your life again. And then you have to pick up and I have to start studying again. And I really build a buffer for myself for the later part of the year by working really hard and spending more time studying and working ahead on whatever I can. Because that way, come January, when my CrossFit bubble starts to take up a little more space, I can afford it and I can make more space for that. And I can sort of I don't want to say like I stopped doing things in school, but if I have to spend a little bit less time studying for something in an exam because I have to get this training in, I've already built the buffer up where it's fine. I can afford to not get a 90% on this exam and not go nuts because I didn't go over all the material 3 times. Like, I can just work through do whatever the best I can do in my studying, and then I can get all my training done. But I'll prioritize getting all my training done and then work and study with the time that I have left. Whereas earlier in the year, it's the opposite. So, I mean, usually I get through everything. I'm trying to think of what she's talking about. I feel like I always get everything done. But, the only exception is like this year, I switched in May, basically right after regionals. I finished my year of school and we started working as interns, which we do for a full year. So that was a massive change in schedule. And I usually have exams around regionals time, so that was no different. I know how to deal with that. And I basically just stopped going to school. I just will study for my exams from home, and then I'll train for regionals, and I'll train, and then I'll study for like a couple hours between sessions, and then I'll train, and then I'll study again, and then I go home.
Right.
And, that sort of was the same this year. But since I was working, my schedule is very different because I can't do that. Like with school, oftentimes no one's taking attendance in my classes. If I want to go, I go. If I don't, then I don't. And I'm responsible to learn the material, and I have to find a way to learn it and teach myself and spend the time. But I can do that from anywhere. And often I use that as my advantage to, if I need to get certain sessions done or I need to be somewhere to go do a certain session, I can do that. But since I'm working now in a clinic, you can't do that anymore. Like, I need to be in the clinic from 7 to 3. And if I'm not, like, I'm I'm getting in trouble. Like that's a bad news. So it was a bit different this year. I mean, there were some days, basically like Tuesday, Thursdays, Saturdays were my work days where I'm in clinic treating patients. And then the other days I just can do schoolwork on my own time. But Tuesdays and Saturdays usually were long training days. So some days I'd be in the clinic from 7 to 3. I'd come home and maybe be at the gym by 4 and have to train 3 sessions starting at 4 o'clock in the evening. So like if she programmed like 2 sessions and then like a swim session at a lake somewhere, like I can't do that. And that's just, okay, so I can't do this session and then drive an hour to the lake and do that session and then drive back and then do the 3rd session because it will be tomorrow by the time I do that. So it like there was some of that where I'd have to just, she was programming for Laura Horvath and myself and like Willie George and some people like that. So my programming sometimes just changed from what theirs was. So we weren't doing the same thing anymore because my schedule just didn't allow it on certain days. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I feel like I get everything done. I don't know. It's a challenge. Like it's just an extra scheduling challenge basically. And I have to be very upfront about it. Like a couple of days I just tried to do it. I remember, I think 1 or 2 occasions she programmed like 3 sessions after work and I did it. And we had a pretty bad heat wave in the summer here as well. So I had like a 35 to 40 degree day and I did like 2 sessions back to back. And then I was at the track and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I just was like, what the hell am I doing? And so I had to like have a chat with her after that and just say like, look, Tuesdays are off limits for like 3 sessions. We can only have 2 sessions max on Tuesdays and probably on Saturdays. And any other day of the week, like go nuts. I don't care. But like certain days, it's just a scheduling challenge. And that's the biggest thing. But as long as we're upfront about it, and Michelle and I are very vocal in our relationship. So we have pretty good banter back and forth. And so if I feel like things are a certain way, I'll tell her how I feel and she will do the same to me. So it's good.
Yeah, that's super important. I feel like the communication stuff is definitely important. How did you guys go at regionals? I assume she attended your region.
Yeah, she did. She had a few athletes at our regional. So because there was myself, she's done some programming for Caroline Reason-Thibault. I think in the men's field, she was working with Paul Tremblay a little bit, Josh Gervais, some guys that were Sam Crenoyer, another guy who's from her gym. So I think she might have had 5 or 6 athletes that she was working with at our regional. And then she had Laura going the same weekend in Europe. So given the option of going to see Laura or the 6 of us, she stayed with us.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, so she came and she been there. She was with me last year at the regional, and the year before that she was competing. So yeah, she was there. I mean, it was good. She had a lot of athletes, so she had a lot on her plate, but it was fine. I feel like I don't need a whole lot of hand holding in competition. So it was good. I think she was focused a little bit on helping some of her other athletes who were newer. One of them was his first regional. And so that was great. And she had a couple, her programming DECA comp, she had a couple of the other coaches there with her to kind of help spread the load. So it was good. The regionals was good. I mean, I did very well. There were some small errors that were made throughout the weekend. There always are. So we always talk about that stuff and we try to talk about it right after each event and then just move on from there. And she'll take notes on that stuff and bring it home and we'll workshop that later on. But during the event, regionals I felt like it was a pretty smooth run this year. So it was good.
How do you find, what kind of coaching will she provide on the weekend? Like, give us an example of moments that she stepped in and was super helpful.
She will pretty much do as much as I would let her do. She's great for anything from we're between events and okay, how much time is it until our next call? Okay, you have 2 hours. You should eat something. I have this. She'll bring extra food in case you didn't bring food, and she's got her contingency plans for whatever. She builds all of my warm-ups and will keep me on a schedule as far as when I should start warming up, when I should be done, what I should be doing before I get into the corrals. Mostly that sort of stuff. we'll sometimes talk in the mornings and the evenings a little bit about what's to come in the day, and we'll talk a little bit about, well, some strategies and things like that. But most of that work is done by the time you're at regionals, just because of the nature of that competition, where you already know the events. You've probably already done them all, and we might have some slight adjustments based on floor setup or what some feedback maybe that another athlete gave from a heat just before. But mostly it's a lot of like logistical stuff of just like, okay, what should I do? I'm gonna get some ice bath, like how long? She'll come time you. Okay, you should go see your therapist. Do that now because you only have an hour, and then you're gonna have to eat, and then you're gonna have to start warming up. And so she keeps me on a schedule, because the other I'm also in competition in general. I think I'd end up getting sucked around, and I get chatty with people, and I lose track of time, and I'm not like laser focused in on things.
Yeah.
So her running joke is that like working with someone like Carol Ann versus working with me, like last year, we're like the opposite. Like she's got to stop Carol Ann from warming up, because she'll do all of her warm up and someone else's before 30 minutes before her event's supposed to start. And for me, she'll be like chasing me down from somewhere. I mean, like, have you done this yet? Your call's in 3 minutes. And I'm like, have no idea. Like I've lost my grips and I don't know what's going on, like, so she works hard to like keep me on track for that kind of stuff, because I'm getting better for it. But a lot of times I try to relax a little bit in competition. So yeah, she does a lot to just try to keep me on track and focused.
Did you or did you not do any uni work study during regionals or the games? Complete honest answer.
I did during the games. I did during regionals.
I knew it.
Games would be another level.
Yeah. If you were studying during the games.
I mentioned it once during the games, I think on Saturday, and Michelle was like, don't even start. I made a point of that. Like I didn't bring anything with me, but I had my computer, and I was like starting to get a little, like I haven't checked my emails in like a few days, and I know there's some shit in there that needs addressing. And I just like, anyways, I made a point. I told myself before the weekend that I would not look at anything school related or think about it until Monday at least. Well, Tuesday, hopefully, because I also had most of Monday to try to hang with my family. So it was like, try to just not think about it, because if you think about it, it'll stress you out.
Yeah.
But just like leave it, just do the games while you're here, and then be fine. So I had to go like Saturday to Sunday, like 8 days without doing anything, but it's good. We're all good. I did a lot of work today.
Nice.
You should think about it as like a like shit talking other competitors. Like while they're still going in events, maybe just pull out a book or two and just move on to study.
Oh yeah,
still
start highlighting shit on the air bike. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Maybe on like the row, if we had to wait for everyone to finish in the row, maybe I would have done that. Brought out some
perfect opportunity.
Oh, you guys didn't have to wait.
No, like that. That was something that everybody really wanted to know, because it was a 4-hour time cap, right?
Yeah.
You had to wait like normal, where the heat winner, everyone waits, and then when everyone's done, the heat winner gives their interview. We were like, oh shit, like, are we gonna have to all sit there? Because I mean, it could be 5 minutes. We don't know. Like between everyone finishing, it could be 30 minutes. Like if someone has big issues and cramps or does things, like it could be a long time.
Yeah.
So we were concerned we'd have to be stuck sitting out there.
Yeah.
The only guy waiting is trying to get that Spirit of the Games award. Like, I'm just going to sit here till 4 hours to win this Spirit of the Games.
Okay, I can't believe you survived award. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're jumping ahead a little bit.
Sorry, we work backwards.
Yeah, that's all right. What did you take from regionals? I mean, you said it was more or less pretty perfect. A few hiccups. What did you take out of it as like, I need to improve on this, or I need to fix this before going to the games?
Actually, as far as all the movements and skills involved in the regionals, there was no real major things to address. Everything went pretty well. And I think I actually had a really good run at regionals. It was more like willingness to attack certain things harder. There were certain events that I just didn't have to, so I didn't, particularly by the end of the weekend. And that's something that like I shouldn't have done, maybe just because, that you may be in a tighter race at the games. You might have, you've got a different field, right? So it's important to keep that in mind. I sort of used the regional as an opportunity to just to see what it was like to lead the regional and to lead the competition. And from that perspective, I didn't have to do a lot. I could force other athletes to make mistakes because they would have to try to beat me. Like, I didn't have to do anything really. I just had to be steady as she goes, not make too many mistakes, and it was going to be enough. But I could sort of like lean back and wait for them to swing, and then I could just do whatever I wanted after that and react. So I that's just a different way to compete in some way, in a way that I've never really had the opportunity to compete as, because I've had the good fortune of always competing against Matt at regionals. So it's just a different perspective. And so I tried to wear that hat and see what that was like. And it's cool to do that. I mean, I could do whatever I wanted. One guy beats me in one event, but he only beats you once. And then the other events you win. And like, it wasn't the same people beating me ever. It was always somebody different. And so you're fine. And I mean, that's how Matt wins the games, is that exact same way. So it was an interesting thing to play with. Michelle didn't like it. I think she said that I should have tried to attack more in a couple areas, and I can't disagree. I mean, I understand what she's saying from her perspective, but that was something for me. I think I saw that I had the opportunity to do that, and I wanted to just sort of see what it was like to hold a power position in the competition floor and be able to sort of dictate the competition floor how you wanted to, and not be chasing people. So in that way, it was a very relaxed regional. Like I think I competed very relaxed, and I didn't ever feel stressed or anxious about anything. But I mean, that doesn't carry over to the games, right? So anyway, it was something to play with and to see and get some experience with. But I mean, after regionals, it was mostly just, it's changing what you're working on a lot. Like the games, particularly this year, was very different in terms of programming. So yeah, I was just picking up some new things and adding some other stuff in, and just trying to ramp up the volume a lot. I think now the intensity didn't change much, but we had just added a lot of volume. So yeah, I don't know. It was pretty good. I mean, you start running a bit more, something a bit more like biking, doing more strong and doing more climbing, doing more whatever, and just hoping that it all pays off.
Yeah. And do you feel like it was different to your approach last year? Do you think you picked up the volume in comparison to your third place finish last year, or you?
I think so. I think in general, the whole entire year I have, though. I think this last year I trained more than I ever have in the past. And there were times where like I didn't necessarily like it or agree with it. But we talked about that after the games last year. And I mean, for me, from my perspective, Michelle's in charge of that stuff, and I trust her a lot. And I think you have to trust your coach. So when we talked about it at the time, it was sort of like, look, this is like, now you podiumed in 2016, like I was top 4 again. And then it was like, there's not a lot of growth, like room for growth. So like the way we're going to have to grow is like, we've got to add some things in, like it's going to be more. And like, if you're prepared to deal with that, great. If not, like I need to know, and like, what's your stance on it? So we made that decision together to just like try to up the ante and see where we can go with it for now. So yeah, I would say definitely the year on the whole was a little bit more, and it worked out well enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I did have a broad question about your feelings about the ongoing stuff, but we'll leave it to the end. You've probably heard it 100 times, and we asked the listeners for some questions, and we got pretty much the same question 45 times, but we'll get to it at the end. Let's talk about starting the games weekend. You started probably a little bit, probably not on the right foot. In fact, you lost your footing and crashed. Can you walk us through what happened there? And just walk us through that. How'd that affect your games?
It was the crib was a cool event. I'm actually like, the biggest thing I'm irritated about in that event is that I didn't really get to do it. Like, I think that part of the fun of the crit event was riding in a pack and like actually riding with people and getting to play with that a little bit. And I didn't really get the opportunity to do it. Everyone afterwards was like, man, that was super fun. Like, there was communication in the pack, and they got to ride with a group and work together. And it just like sounded sweet, but I didn't get to do that. So it was fine. I mean, like, I basically, like, I had a wreck. I've seen lots of things about people talking like my chain just like magically broke off. Like, no, like I crashed into Brandon Luckett and his bike tangled up and it pulled my gear shifts right off. But like we crashed, like there was a crash and then the derailleur broke off the bike. So, yeah, it was kind of like everyone knew there was potential for that going in, and particularly on that corner. And I looked at it as like, I'm just going to try to ride really safe for like 2 laps until it thins a bit. And then we'll start to try to like pick it up a little bit and move through the pack. So when I took that corner, like, I actually took it like a little bit outside so that I wouldn't be as tight with everyone.
Yeah.
And then when I came back in, I was like coming into a hole, and I was sort of like around the one side where there was the barricade. So I had to loop back in, or else, like, you know, if I just had gone straight, I'd hit the stone barricade. So I was like creeping in, and Alex Anderson, I believe, was inside of me, and then he sort of kicked up to kind of hit the gap that I was shooting at, which is, I mean, great. But he just like insided me really hard and basically just rubbed me out. So I was gonna hit the wall or hit him. So I tried to hit the brakes and come in behind him, and I ended up clipping my front wheel on his back wheel. So it just it almost sent me over because I was leaning in, and then I hit my wheel, and now my wheel was that way. So I was just falling over the side. So I just turned my wheel to stay up, and I ended up like turning straight across, and then I hit Brandon and we've crashed. So it was just like, I mean, it's a combination of, I think, everybody being not super experienced riders in that mid pack. And then I'm sure probably, I mean, in hindsight, should have just hit the brakes way earlier, but I didn't want to slam on the brakes when there's people behind me as well. Right. So I like tried to brake and then come in behind them last minute. And then we just wrecked. Like, that's all there is to it. That was the point of the event. And I just like wasn't the best rider, and I wrecked a little bit. So I don't know. It sucked. I mean, instantly you sort of feel like, because I did stay up, and I was still clipped in, and I just went to pedal, and my gears were all off. So I just like clipped out, and I ran to the first mechanic station, and I was like, fuck, like here we go again kind of thing. I was like, great start. And I mean, it's not a good feeling, especially when I was expecting to do well in the week, right? And so yeah, it's kind of just like your heart sinks a little bit quickly, and I was like, fuck. Like, but at the time, there's not much you can do. It's just like, what do I do now to do whatever I can do? So I ran to the mechanic stop, and they gave me a new bike, but the new bike wasn't fitted for me, right? So the seat post was like all the way to the bottom. So I basically rode on like a tiny bike for 9 laps.
Low rider.
And it was actually, I mean, Brandon, who I ran into, and he fell as well. He and I rode together like to just a little 2-pack and rotated the lead for most of the race to just try to catch a few riders. And we caught like 4 or 5 guys. But yeah, I mean, you lose the whole pack, and then like it's gone. You're not going to chase people on bikes like that. Like, I had to run like 200 meters with my bike to go change it out, and then whatever. And like the pack is gone, and you lose all that draft potential. And so anyway, it was disappointing because it's just, those are fun events. I remember the cyclocross last year was super fun, and I was looking forward to another event like that. And I just didn't really get to do the same event that the other guys did. So anyway, maybe another time, but so I don't know. That's like, it's unfortunate, but I got asked a bit about it afterwards, and I was like, I don't know, like, what are you going to do? I got in a crash, and like part of the fun of running this event was that people were expecting to see crashes. Like, yeah, there you go. You hope it's not you, but it was me, and that's fine. Yeah. So again, you just try to figure out what to do. For the only good new thing is that I knew based on last year that like, yeah, I had a really bad finish, and it's fine. Like, there's a long weekend, and even knowing then that there was 4 events on day 1, it's like, this isn't even detrimental for your standing at the end of day 1. You just have to crush everything else for the rest of the day. Yeah. And actually, one of the first things I thought after the event, when we went inside and we were sitting down and kind of chatting about it, was that, fuck, I'm going to have to try a lot harder on this marathon row than I would like.
Shit. Well, you did.
Darn.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Did Brandon have to swap his bike as well?
No, he didn't.
Okay, so he just waited for you.
His chain came off, I think. So by the time I had gotten up, he was just kind of cruising past me as I was getting rolling again. Um, so yeah, we just kind of were like riding together, and he just said like, "Hey, let's ride together and figure it out." So we did, but it was cool. Yeah.
Did you have you didn't pick up anything from there, like an ankle or a bruised shoulder or anything like that?
No, I stayed up, right? Like I didn't actually fall. I mean, I like scraped the back of my leg a bit when I hit Brandon's bike. I mean, I got like a scratch on my calf kind of thing and on my ankle, but not significant. My just like roasted my quads because my bike wasn't sized for me properly. So for the rest of the race, I was just biking all quads. So that like I wasn't pumped after that. I was wondering how it was going to affect my total. If I was going to be able to squat heavy, but other than that, it was fine. Like it was okay. It just was like that. I feel like I lost out on like the fun part of the event, but it's all right.
I can't believe Brandon still wanted to ride with you after that.
I don't actually think that he knew it was me that hit him. I think that because it just like you're in a big pack and it happens really fast. Because it's same. I didn't know that it was Alex who had nosed me out on that one. And then I saw a video of it and I was like, oh, fuck, it was Alex. And we were talking afterwards and he said it might have been him. And I was like, oh, I have no idea. Like when that sort of thing happens, you're not looking up at whose jersey's in front of you. Yeah. I was like, fuck, like you're about to eat shit and you just you're trying to adjust so you don't fall. And so I think everyone's just reacting. So yeah, he just knew he got hit and he fell and he was probably like, oh man, like I got to get up and get moving. And then I was just the next guy up. So we just like got talking and got riding together. So,
yeah, it makes sense. And then, after that, obviously there was, some good events for you. Like obviously the 30 muscle ups for time, muscle ups, great movement for you. What was the word going around? Was there just a bunch of shit talking like, I'm going to go unbroken? Like,
no, I think the problem is that everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
You can't really like, and we all know the difference that like the straps will make and things like that. And like, how bouncy are they? Is it windy? I don't know. Maybe if there's some people who are like maybe some of the less experienced athletes are buying into that. But if anybody back there was telling me they were going unbroken, I was like, yeah, sure, buddy. Like, whatever. The only people who we thought maybe could were Cody and Logan. And I think realistically only Logan was like we were like all kind of looking at him to see if he would do it.
Right.
And then when he didn't, we were in the heat afterwards. When he didn't, we were like, cool, like it's a no-go.
Yeah.
And even like, I think I did it, I tested it a week before and I went like 28-2 or something like that. But even with that, like just with my size for me to do, that's, I think exactly what Logan did in the competition was 28-2. And he did it, I think like 12 seconds faster than I did it in training, doing the exact same rep scheme with like a shorter rest in for me. Like it's just like cycle speed matters. I actually didn't really like that event because of that. I thought that most athletes would probably do a very similar rep scheme and the workout will be determined by how big you were and how long your rest was, which you can afford to take like a 5-second longer rest if you're gaining 5 seconds on your rep speed, which is just like freebie. So it's not awesome, but I'm also not the biggest guy in the field. Like I don't gain a significant disadvantage. It was just like, and I wasn't sure about how the test was. But I mean, I no repped on my last rep, like made a mistake and cost me like 4 spots or 5 spots. I think I finished like 9th in that event. Yeah, and it probably should have been a top 5 for me. So it went well, but it could have gone much better. And that's just like how it is in competition, right? Like I think that I was too conservative. I think I should have done one more rep in my first set and then had less on the last one. And I made that decision and it was wrong and that's fine. But it was cool. I mean, it's a fast event. I always find it interesting when you have like some of those tests, like everyone was all like, oh, you know, day one was the most brutal day of ever was what Dave was saying. Realistically, only the row was what was brutal.
Yeah.
Like you walk us out there to do 30 muscle ups, like it's a 2-minute event. Like it's between 2 and 3 minutes for probably all of the whole men's field to finish. And like, that's not a big deal. Like, and it seems almost unfair for like someone who does their 2 minutes of muscle ups gets 100 points. And then you got buddy has to row for 3 hours to get his 200 points, right? Like the tests they are what they are, and they're testing totally different things. But it's always funny. Like it's always nice to be the guy that gets his points for very little work, very little time under tension.
Yeah.
But I mean, what if you have like a couple minutes of work there, and then your total's like 9 lifts. It's just you have to warm up, stay warm, and then go execute. But yeah, anyway, the muscle ups were cool. It was fun to have everybody on the rig all at once. Like it was a cool event. I think fun for people to see. But I think that Dave programmed it expecting a few people to go unbroken.
Right. I think Matt almost did, and he got no rep on his last rep.
I think he broke, and then he got no rep on his last rep.
Oh, he had a break before that? Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
So anyway, I think that that's kind of what he was looking for, is that it would be spectacular to watch someone do the 30 unbroken, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like you always would have expected when 30 muscle ups was really popular, like 5 years ago. In the future, they're like, CrossFitters are going to be like deadlifting 600 pounds. They're going to be doing, 30 muscle ups unbroken, all this sort of stuff. And it's not quite ever eventuated that way, just because the tests have kind of changed. And so the bodies have had to change a little bit.
And there's too much. Like there's just too much to do. We talked a lot about testing on the weekend, just because there's a few things that were benchmarks, things like 30 muscle ups for time, like the total, whatever. How do you strategize your total? Like I hadn't tested my 1RMs in so long, 2 years. Like, and you can't really, because if you're stuck always testing, you're always going to be testing. Cause like, what's next? Like, oh, I got to know what my 400 time is. What's my 5K row? What's my 2K row? What's my deadlift? What's my front squat? What's my back squat? What's my overhead squat? Like you'll spend a day, you'll test a different thing every day. And then by the time you get to the end, you got to start over.
Yeah.
It's just like, it doesn't matter. And I think it doesn't matter that much. Like you need to be able to, as an athlete, gauge yourself and say, okay, in the warm up, like how did this feel? How did this feel? And you just have to make decisions on the competition floor. And sometimes they're not going to be perfect, and that's what happens in competition. But I think I talked to a lot of people who are like, dude, I have no idea. Like, when was the last time you maxed out your deadlift? Why would I ever max out my deadlift?
Yeah.
You're just going to hurt yourself. Like, that's not a good idea. So anyway, it's the same with the muscle ups and even like the row and stuff like that. Like people just, there was a lot of having to play it by ear based on the conditions that we had and how you were feeling from the events before and whatever. So
yeah,
it's cool. Like I thought the tests were great, but this year was a lot of like single modality testing is what it felt like for day one particularly. And then down the line there was some other stuff, but anyway.
Yeah. So when it came to the total, did you have the expectation that you would finish where you finished? I mean, second is...
No, I actually thought I would finish middle of the pack in the total. And just because I'm not an exceptionally strong guy in CrossFit, like since I've started, and no, and still not. Like this is the thing. This is like a very misleading.
How is it misleading? Came second in the total. That's crazy.
Yeah, but the problem is that like so. What did I back squatted like 455? Like it was a good back squat, but that's probably middle of the pack for that field. I bet you there was a lot of guys who squatted like higher, closer to 500. Anyway, like just nothing to write home about. It was a PR back squat for me by like 30 pounds because I just never test my back squat. Like the last time I would have PR'd my back squat was when I did 425 for a triple. And that was the heaviest single I had ever done because I had just never done that. So since then, I've always been measuring, like when I do percentage work, I always base it off like a hypothetical 1 rep max, which I had marked as 455. Like I was like, on a good day, if I was feeling it, I could do it. And then I just finally did it. Like that's all that was. And I'd been basing my percentages off that forever. So that made sense. Fine. Good job. The press, I'm not a very good presser. I opened at 185. I hit 200 and they no-repped me for my heel coming off. So then I just did the 200 again for my third attempt because I knew I could do it. And there was no point adding like 5 or 10 pounds on your press. It's inconsequential. Like to risk that and then risk getting maybe like failing that rep by adding 10 pounds, I'd rather take my extra 15 pounds and go home, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because adding 5 pounds or 10 pounds onto your press doesn't matter when you're about to go deadlift. Adding 5 pounds onto your deadlift, you won't even feel it. Like, that's a drop in the bucket. So, and I am a strong deadlifter. Like, I know that I am, but I probably at the ranch the other year, I think I deadlifted 525 only. And, I mean, I don't do a lot of deadlifting heavy. I do a lot of like sets of like 4 to 8 at whatever percentages, maybe like the odd triples at like 505 kind of thing, 500. But I mean, it felt good when I was warming up. Like, some of the bars that people were finishing to warm up with, like, I could pull very easily with no belt and like not even thinking about it. So I was like, I was feeling pretty good. I figured I would open over 500, and then everyone, like, I think what impressed people too is they said when I did my first jump from 500 to like 565, people were like, that's a massive jump when you're at that range. And it was purely done out of laziness, like 100% out of laziness. I already had all the blues on, and in order to put anything on, I basically was just like, I'll put greens on because then I don't have to take anything off. And I don't have to like put 10s on and then take them back off for my next loading. So I just it was just a lazy change. And I was like, that last one felt reasonably good. I'm sure I'll be able to hit this one, like, hopefully anyway. And so I just did that because I was being lazy and it was faster. And then on the last one, like, everyone's been on my ass for not lifting 600. And yeah, like, fair enough. And it would have also won the event for me, which would have been sweet, and I definitely could have done it. But it was just basically I hadn't planned. I hadn't deadlifted in forever. I didn't have a plan to be lifting that heavy because I just didn't expect it. So I went to go load all the blues on, and I didn't even there was like a minute left, and I couldn't do math. So I was like, fuck. Like, I look at my judge, and I was like, how many is 6 blues? Like, how much is that? Because they had a cheat sheet, and she says 585, and I was like, 585, good enough. So I go to put the clips on, and then the 5s were sitting on the ground right next to the clips. So I was just like, what's another 10 pounds on like 585? So I just threw it on, and then I stepped back and I called it out to her, 595. And then I stopped for a second. I'm like, 595, like that's 600 pounds. Like, just do 600. But then I had 20 seconds on the clock.
Too late.
So I was like, nah, whatever, it doesn't matter. And it's impossible to know everyone's total. Like, there's so many people out there doing 3 different lifts, 3 different attempts each time. It's not like when you're doing those 1 rep max snatch or clean and jerk and you can game it and see what other people are doing. Like, you actually did just kind of have to put your best effort out there and then just see what happened. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was annoying because I didn't ever expect to do that well in the total in a strength event. But then having come back and be like, man, you got second, I was like, oh, fucking right. And they're like, by 5 pounds. It's like, oh, damn it. Like, I had no rep on the press or just doing the deadlift at 600 like I probably should have done. I would have won the event. But it's easy to always look back on events and say things like that. We're like, oh, like, what if I had not done this? What if I had done that? Like, yeah, but you didn't. And it's fine. I'm perfectly happy with that on the total. And I think, to me, that made up a lot of points that I lost in the crit, because I had expected kind of with a normal race. I think I placed 22nd in the time trial. And for me, I'm probably a better racer for the 12K than for the time trial. I'm not as good at the high power output sprint. So I looked at it like, well, I'll probably pick up a few places, maybe finish 15th in the crit. But having had crashed, then lost a lot of points there, I expected to finish middle of the pack in the top 20 in the powerlifting. So I was pumped that I basically that was a wash pretty much to me. I made up all those points right there, and I was like, cool, we're back on track. You're probably where you should be based on that. And then we had the row later, but that was good. That was definitely a big event for me to just get my shit back together and put myself back where I thought that I should be in the mix. And it also was able to keep me up in the top heat, right? Getting a lot of points that was big, just so I didn't actually lose any advantage after day one.
Mm. It's always good to scare your competitors to know that, holy shit, this guy's like so good at other things, but he's not really that strong. And then to come second, they're like, oh my fucking God, if Pat Vellner's coming second in the total, he's going to crush us in the other things. That's psychological warfare. It's like when Matt Fraser won the run, right?
In the first
Everyone's
event.
like, yeah, he's a weightlifter, right? Like he's not really good. And he goes and starts winning all the running events. People are like, we're fucked now. Like, I can't beat him at the run. What can I beat him at? You know, so
yeah. I mean, I think there was maybe a little bit of that. Like when I walked back, Brent, that's what Brent asked me. He's like, "Holy shit!" And like everybody is like, "Dude, where did that deadlift come from?" I was like, "I don't know. Like honestly, I never really deadlift. Like it's not something I do often." And they were like, "Fuck!" Like, and I mean, I'm like a strong deadlifter, and the people who've competed against me, whenever there's those workouts like the kettlebell deadlift stuff or things like that, I generally will do well at those deadlifting workouts. I won that GHD running heavy deadlift one at regionals the other year. Like I do well at that stuff, but I don't know. And I'm sort of built for it too, right? So it was definitely good. It was nice to do that. And to me, it just goes to show how important the deadlift is in your total. Like you can wash out any shortcomings because there's just so much weight that can be moved in the deadlift.
yeah.
That like, if I could like lose on this press, lose on the squat, and then just flatten everybody by 100 pounds on the deadlift, and then it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
absolutely.
That's kind of what happened. It was just like I just had a really good deadlift, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Were you allowed to do a sumo deadlift on the day?
No.
Okay. Did you also see? I can't remember. I want to say Aaron Carone or something, or he had
Alex.
Yeah, he had to pull out after the squat. We won't get too into it, but what are your thoughts on CrossFit allowing that to go ahead? I think by the time you stepped out on the field, it was dry, but it was raining a decent amount during their maxing of the back squat, which I think if you guys have been told that ahead of time, I don't know, maybe you were told ahead of time that if it rains, you're going to have to keep squatting, and it was raining during your thing. What do you think you would have done?
I would have taken my shirt off and tried the platform or tried to stand on it probably. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, and I don't know what kind of effort they made to dry the platforms that before they let the men go out. Like if they did towel them off or what, like I have no idea. We saw that it was pouring rain, like right as the women finished. And it just blew right over basically. But, and I mean, I know Alex pretty well, and I didn't hear about that even until after the row that he had hurt himself. But, yeah, it's too bad. I mean, it's super unfortunate. He was having actually a pretty good first day too. And, I think he actually still finished top 10 in the total with that happening.
Did you see it?
I didn't know. And I don't really want to. I mean, knee injuries aren't the best thing to watch. But
you are a chiropractor, though. Surely you're gonna.
Yeah, I was like, we can assess and diagnose. I have the video here, but if you don't want to show it,
I heard it was a PCL injury. Like I heard about it.
It's pretty bad.
But yeah, and I mean it's too bad. You never like to see. There was a few people who got hurt this week, and you never like to see that. It's tough. People work really hard to get there, and to have your weekend cut short is really difficult. So I don't know. I mean, frankly, CrossFit does a lot to try to keep all the athletes safe, actually.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, if you're asking if it's a negligence thing, like, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that they made a quick towel off and they thought it was acceptable or they wouldn't have run the event. So I don't know. Like, I haven't seen the slip, but I know it was when he was dumping the bar over. So I don't know, like whether it was that he just had a bad dump too, like I have no idea. But anyway, it's super too bad. Like it's very unfortunate. It's sad for Alex. I still saw him all week and chatted with him a few times. He was in good spirits and trying to enjoy their games still. But he was disappointed for sure. And I think he's going to bust his ass to get back for sure.
Was there a prescription on the squatting style? Because it seemed like nobody did like a low bar squat. Did they ban the low bar squat?
No, they didn't. Actually, I know John Colte did it. But here's the problem, I think, is that nobody trains the low bar squat. So we all sat in the back and we're like, you ever low bar squatted before? And everyone's like, no. And so what do? Do you go out there and then you try to low bar squat for the first time on the competition floor, having never done it? That's a really stupid idea.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, like sometimes you see people do things like that in events, or they see someone employ some sort of strategy and then they say, oh man, like I didn't think about that. I've never tried that before. And then it worked really well for this other guy, so I'm going to do it. And like, you just shouldn't do that. Like if you've never trained something, you're not familiar with the movement pattern, you don't know, like that's very dangerous. I'm going to go out there and max out my back squat with effectively a movement I've never done before.
In the rain.
Yeah. Like you got to use your head sometimes, and just, if you're not going to squat the most, like just don't squat the most and live to fight for the next event, because lots of events. And I mean, the last thing you want to do is cripple yourself doing something stupid on the floor. Like, so no, they didn't, the only things that were specific is that you couldn't sumo deadlift, and there was a lot of like pressing standards, but that was basically it. I think the press is what they foresaw as the thing that people would try to cheat the most.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, there's like a lot of ways that you can try to gain an advantage in the press. So.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And then obviously this is probably the big talking point of the weekend, in terms of the events, was the marathon row. What are the first things that come to mind? And then, we had a bit of a discussion on it as well on our show, but we knew that what would be the most important thing, or was preventing the sort of the blisters, the hands, the chafing, all that sort of thing. So what measures did you take to kind of offset those?
Yeah, so there was like, so when I got announced, my girlfriend's an endurance athlete. Like she did cross country skiing for years, and she knows a lot of like rowers, national team rowers. And when this came up, a friend of hers actually knows the guy who currently holds the record for the men's marathon row. So she was like, hey, do you want to talk to this guy? Like, we can kind of get you in touch with him. She gave me his phone number, and I didn't end up calling him, but I saw, she sent me like some screenshots from the conversation that they had like just quickly being like, hey, like he's got to do this marathon road. Do you have any quick tips? And he like gave a couple of tips, like, this is my number, like if you want to chat about it. I'm like,
yeah,
I didn't really need to hear from him what exactly was going to go on. So frankly, the less I knew, the better, I think.
He's like, don't do it, bro.
Yeah, probably, right?
I've been injured for 6 years.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, mostly the things that he said was like, look, you have to eat, like you have to eat and you have to drink a lot. Like he said, I think every 10 minutes he had like beside him a bench of like little cups of like whatever carbs and things like that, and he would eat every 10 minutes, try to refuel and stay fueled. And I think that was really important. And like you said, maintaining your hands was really important. A lot of people came out with gloves and grips and whatever. I actually went the day before and I bought a bunch of just like Band-Aids, like normal Band-Aids, cloth Band-Aids that have like the padded part to them.
Yeah.
And I put one on like each of my 3 fingers, and just like that under my gloves was enough, like that and a little tape under my gloves, because it's sort of like those spots in between your fingers that get caught. And I just get raw after a long time. And I still, after about halfway through, I felt like I was getting some hot spots, and I was like, shit, like this is going to be bad news for the weekend. But I had to really stay focused on the way I gripped the paddle, and then it seemed to be fine. So it was actually like, it ended up being okay, but you really had to focus on what you were doing, I think, to avoid some of that stuff. Like everybody had a ton of Vaseline and things for trying to just avoid chafing, like even under your arms, like on your butt, whatever. But it was actually a pretty cool event. It sucked, but I think that the way you had to pace it and the way that you could see the people on the other boats and things like that was really interesting. I mean, we're used to pacing a 10 to 20 minute kind of time domain to have some energy at the end and kick. But I mean, there's something so different about pacing a 3-hour event. There's just the pace that you're starting at, or like whatever average split you're going to finish with. If you're pulling that at the start, it feels comically easy. Like it feels like a joke. And you're like, I can't believe it. This is so easy. Nah, nah, nah. And like, even after an hour, it probably still feels easy. Maybe after 2 hours, but like, then you start to just fall apart, and you get very crampy. And it was a strange event because it was not hard aerobically or like your heart rate wasn't high. There was no real challenge in that. It was conversational. Like, you could chat with the people in the boats next to you.
Yeah.
But your muscles start to fail. Like, the amount of pulls you're doing. We were talking about it while we were walking to the Coliseum. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever really measured when you're rowing, but roughly at a reasonable pace, you probably pull about 10 meters a stroke. When you're just like pulling at the paces we were, it's probably roughly that.
Yep.
So that's 420,000 strokes. Over 420,000 strokes. And like, people count their strokes. Like, if you're doing something like with cows or something like that, like, you'll count your strokes kind of absentmindedly while you're doing things, just because it's something to do. But like, you're not counting up to 420,000. So you have to find something else to do. And there's just like, there's ways you can think and different strategies you can take to, maybe you change your stroke rate every 1,000 meters or every 500 meters. You switch up your style of rowing. You do certain things just to try to tax a different muscle group a little bit more and change it up. And it was just weird. Like, your forearms got crampy, your quads got crampy, like your low back got crampy. And but you didn't feel that like tired. You just felt weak. Like, at a certain point, like, pulling a 2-minute split was something to be commended. Like, it was very hard. And it was guys who started and were like, I'm going to pull a 2-minute split. And I mean, I looked up to some stats on like Marathon Row, and I spoke to these guys, and I mean, the men's record is pulling like a 140 for that long, which is,
my God, holy shit.
Like, that's fucked. So that's what I mean. Like, I didn't really want to talk to this guy. Like, the tips that he's going to be giving, like, they don't apply to me, frank.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what am I going to do to finish? Like, and I thought about what Dave was saying, where he's like, I finished in about like 3:15, and I think some people will go sub 3. And I was like, all right, so like, we're going to shoot to be like a sub 3, whatever. Like, I think if you did a 2-minute even, you would finish in like 2:54 or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, like a 2-minute split is something good to look for. And if you're feeling good, you can roll a little bit faster than that, or like bounce from a little faster to that. Initially, I was going to try to go from like about a 2-minute and then let it come up to like a 2:03 and then back down to 2, and just bounce between like two paces and just do that the whole time. Maybe do like 1 kilometer here, 1 kilometer there. And then when we started, I was like, this is what I mean. You have to really trust your strategy for a 3-hour event.
Yeah.
Because people started fast. And like, I was sitting next to Matt's pulling a 155, and like, these guys are the guys who came out early to lead. Like, Josh Bridges has got to be pulling like a 150. I'm like, man, like, what the fuck is in here? And so you're just like, you have to really trust that you're making the right decision, because after the first 10 or 15 minutes, like, you weren't even close. And then people just exploded. Like, and it was weird. Like, I think I was around 20th for like the first 5K, maybe 10K, like cruised up a little bit, probably stayed around 14th for like 2 hours. And then like, all of a sudden, like the last half hour, 40 minutes, you just pick people off. And it was like, people ran out of juice, and you're still feeling okay. You're still able to maintain that same 2-minute split that you were doing, but everybody else is rolling a 2:03, a 2:04. And you just like, your last 10K, I passed like 9 guys, or like 7, 8 guys, and moved into 5th. And it was like, it's crazy, but it takes 2 hours. Like, and it's so hard to not get sucked into like playing the game of, especially on our little screens, it shows you who's directly ahead of you and how many meters they are ahead of you, and same behind you.
Yeah.
Like, if you come up and you're like, oh, he's only 20 meters ahead, and you like speed it up to pass him. Oh, and then the next guy is only 20 meters ahead, and you speed up and pass him. And that's a really dangerous game to play when you still got 2 hours left to row.
Yeah.
So I think people underestimated a little bit what the cumulative effect of that much time under tension was going to be, because we've never done it. Like, we've just never lived that. So that was, I think, the coolest thing about that event. And just like watching and just like trying to like eat and stay fueled, and be like, every like 3-4K, like, I should take a handful of something. Like, I had a big container of gummy bears beside me, because you just straight up need carbs and sugar. I had some of those endurance like blocks, those gels and things like that, but I just had them mixed in, and like, it was just grab a handful of whatever sugar you could get, throw it in your mouth, and then just like chew it up and swallow it, and then just have some water whenever you can. Like, it was weird. It was like a very weird event. But it was cool because of that. Like, I think it was a cool challenge. And yeah, I think everybody who did it is like glad that they did it,
Yeah.
right? But I don't think anybody's in a hurry to do it again.
Yeah. How did it feel towards the end when you were eating? Because usually most people, well, you probably wouldn't have had as much experience as well, like in the back end when you're super, super depleted, right? When everyone starts to bonk, it's a pretty common marathon term. When people start bonking. Did you really feel a big difference when you started to put the food in that last sort of end period?
I think the last like 6K or like something like that, I didn't eat anymore. And I didn't want to drink anymore because I was feeling like a little bit full. And it made me feel, because everyone's different, it made me feel weird. Like Matt was sitting next to me and he easily had drank more than double what I had drank.
Oh, right.
But he sweats like an insane person.
Mm.
And he fucking like, he had a lake under him and it was just like, that's what.
Oh, like Fraser.
Water. And I was like, man. And we talked afterwards, and he said the same thing to me, the opposite. He was like, dude, I kept looking at you, and you looked like you weren't even sweating, and it was pissing me off.
It's so competitive.
But it would make you feel better. I found that actually during the event, I kept forgetting to chew. Like I would throw these like gummies in my mouth, and then they would just like sit in my cheek for probably 5 minutes. I would like zone out, I'd be looking back at my split, and then realize like a kilometer or two later that I still hadn't eaten them. I just like stuck them in my mouth and been like slowly swallowing like the saliva and just being like, man, like just chew them and eat them. Like you need that.
Yeah.
And by the end, you're kind of just like your mouth's sticky because of that. And, but yeah, and near the end, I was like 6K left or something. I was like, you're fine. Like you can just get in. And I wanted to Matt and Brent had both asked for waters from the judges. And they went and got them waters. And I was just like, you don't need a water. Like there's 6 minutes, like 6K left. You're going to go, you're going to finish the row, and then you're going to stand up and you're going to get yourself a water. And it's going to feel awesome. And then like, there was like little things like that. Like you just needed to like set goals and not be defeated. Like I can't tell you, every time you saw somebody stand up off a rower, oh, it was awesome. It was like, it made you feel like it was such a defeat for them. Like, I don't know if it was, but for me, it felt like I'd look at him and be like, you're a loser. Like you stood up, like you bum, like you should have to leave. But
get burpees. You play.
Except for, actually, I will say this. There was like I was sitting right behind Ben Smith. And he, on the last like half of the row, like the last 10K, he stood up a lot. And he was the only guy in the whole thing that like when he would stand up, I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. Just like whatever Ben was doing, I was like, that's sweet. Like, go Ben.
Experience.
But he was like, yeah, I was like, oh, what a veteran move. What a veteran. He would stand up though, and he would like grab a full water bottle and just like stand over his rower in power stance and just like dummy, like crush at least half the water bottle and then just sit back down and start rowing again. And it was awesome. It was such a like power move. I don't know. It was so funny. Like, and the guy next to him stands up and I'm like,
idiot.
What a wuss, like what an idiot. And then like 5 minutes later, Ben stands up and just crushes like a liter of water again. And I'm like, oh, like, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. But anyway, it was a weird event. There was a lot of time to like think about stuff and see people. And like, I was like looking around and I noticed that both Panchiks were wearing their weightlifting belts. And we were like, and so you'd be like, hey, Brent, get a load of these guys. And like the point over there. And then we have a laugh at the Panchiks and then we start rowing again for like 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
Like every like 15 minutes or so, we'd have like a really fast conversation about something. And then we'd just start rowing again and be like, okay, cool. Like 3, 4, 5K later, we have another quick chat. And then like it's like, it was weird. It was weird.
Did you ever stop rowing through the whole thing? Did you ever stop stroking at any point?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Yeah.
But and it was cool. Like where we were as well, there was a heat advantage to the row. Like based on because we were 4 rows and effectively it was set up like 4 heats. So if you're in the front row, everyone's facing the same direction. You can't see anyone. But where we were in the back, I could see everybody. So like at the end of the event, when I moved into 5th, we had like maybe, I don't know what, 6K left, 5K left. I passed Roy Gamboa, and then I came up behind Brent, and we just talked quick. Brent's like, "Hey, are you gonna try to push on me?" And I was like, "Nah, we'll see. I don't think so. Like, I'm feeling kind of tired and crampy." And I was like, frankly, we were sitting and looking. He had about 70 meters on me, I think, and we were like, "It's like we'll see." I was like, "No, I think I'm gonna put some separation between me and Roy Gamboa right now, and then we'll see." And then like a couple K later, we were about 3 kilometers from the end, I think. It was because I remember thinking it was about the distance of the 333, and I figured it would probably take us like 13 minutes or something like that to do.
Right.
And at that point, that's like it's over. Like it's the end of the race.
Yeah.
So we talked again, and he said he was trying to move up on Cole Sager, and Cole was just kind of holding him at arm's length. And he's like, I know Cole rows a lot with Bergeron, so he's like, I don't think I can catch him. Like if I try, he's just going to hold me back. And then that's exactly what I thought about Brent too. I was like, I'm like 50 meters back from him, but he's sitting right next to me. So if my screen split drops down, he's just going to match it.
Yeah.
And we only have 3K left. Like there's a good chance, like he's a fit dude and he's a big guy. He can pull on the rower pretty well. Like we weren't going to make up any ground on each other. It was just going to be the three of us pummeling each other and making each other row faster, so that like at the end we were just the three of us would be way more beat up, but we'd end up with the same amount of points. So we were talking, Brent and I was like, look, here's the thing, I don't think I'm going to pass you. I bet you that I'll just move up and then you'll move up and we'll just end up at this stalemate. But my legs and arms are very crampy right now, and I think that if I push too hard and I have to end up in a sprint at the end, like I might lock up and it could be really bad for the couple of days. Like it's day one. So, and he's like, yeah, I feel the same way, and the same way about pushing on Cole. So he's like, you know what? Like, I'm good in fourth if you're good in fifth. I was like, yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah.
So I just said like, hey, I can see Roy. He's like sitting right up there. You see 3 rowers up to the right. And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. Well, all I got to do is watch him. Like if he starts to row hard, I'm going to have to keep him off, but I'll let you know if that happens. And like, we can see him, we can watch his body language. So I'll keep you posted, but otherwise just like, let's just pull like a nice, easy split all the way in and we'll just coast. So he yells over to Cole to get Cole on the program. And then, like, his Cole was like 3 rowers over. Cole gives us the thumbs up. So the 3 of us just kind of coasted in. Cause I mean, Hugberg and Esslinger they were clearly ahead and they were not going to stop. So we just sort of like made a deal in the back row there. And we were like, all right, that sounds good to me. Self-preservation for the weekend. Like that event beats you up as much enough as it is. We don't need to make it worse. So we just sort of did that. And it was funny after those 2 guys finished, we were like maybe 40 meters from each other, like me 40 from Brent 40 from Cole. And so they kind of all flew back, all the media being like, oh, we got a really tight race, 3rd through 5th. And like, there was no race. We were like, we had already predetermined our fates, and we were like, yeah, it's fine. Like we can tell you who wins if you want.
Yeah.
So it was funny. But that's what I mean. It was like an interesting event. Like by the time we had 5K left, 4K left, 3K left, like you were just looking for the door. You were like, cool, like it's done. I just need to go through the motions and get there.
Yeah.
Like there's no more action here. Like I'm fine. And I heard some people ended up in sprints at the end, like, and they were pulling like 135s. Like,
oh no.
Oh, and that's what we were like. I don't want any of that action.
Yeah.
So it was fine. Like we just made a little deal. We were all happy about it. And we walked out, and kind of all sat there and talked. And Cole was like, that was a smart move. Like, thanks for getting me in on that. We're like, yeah, no worries. Like, hey, it's day one. Like, we're not trying to die just yet.
And then what was recovering like after something like that? What were the unexpected things that came up? Like, were you more hungry than you expected? Were you less or more tired than you expected? Like, how did your body feel after something like that?
I was less tired than I expected in terms of like I think at that time of the night, you just kind of got your body all jacked up, and it was a long effort. And then we didn't get out of the venue till probably like 10. And then you had to go and sit down somewhere and eat. So you probably ate at like 11:30. And then like you had to like have a shower and get your shit together and go to bed. Like you just ended up late. And because you had to eat quite a lot and you had to eat a lot late, I think it affected my sleep a lot. I can't speak for everybody else, but I didn't sleep very well after the marathon. I spoke to a few people that said the same, but I sometimes have trouble sleeping in competition anyways. So it was okay. I think it was a bit, you had maybe had trouble finding a good sleeping position, but you could just really, after that event, eat whatever you want because it doesn't matter. Like, probably burn 3,000 calories rowing. I think Elliot Simmons wore his heart rate monitor, and he said something like that. It was like high 2s and 3,000 ish. So you just need to like replenish. Like, you should, as soon as you got out of there, like, have a big shake, go home, have a big dinner, like, and then you have another shake before you go to bed. Like, that was an event that took a lot out of you. And like that whole Wednesday in general, that's just like you just have to fuel so much. And then that whole next day off is like refuel day. Like, you can still just like keep eating and like carb up for the next couple of days. But it was pretty good. Like, I actually don't think I don't know. Everyone was sore the next day. And I think it was important to go through the motions and go do a little bit of walking or do like some like body weight squatting, but just move through your ranges of motion because your hamstrings were just messed up. Like, so it was like so hard to just pull your leg up to like 90 degrees. So if you didn't do that, I think you would have had a little bit more trouble getting moving the next day. But once you did that a little bit, it was okay. You just had to do a little flush and you were kind of fine. I think I was impressed at how well people managed the event actually, and people seemed to snap back pretty well.
Yeah, you guys are pretty nuts. So we moved on to the next day. We had the battleground, which ended up pretty good for you. The clean and jerk speed ladder, and then Fibonacci. How did you find the battleground? I mean, it was other than being relatively, straightforward. I thought it was pretty shocking that actually one of the Aussie girls didn't manage to finish and got disqualified. I don't know if you got wind of that, but
it was Beath, right?
Yeah, it was pretty surprising. It's pretty.
Yeah, I did hear about that. It's surprising. I think it's a long time domain to get through that obstacle course. That was a very fair minimum work requirement. I don't think there was anything on there that was so challenging that if you'd had 3 tries at it, you wouldn't be able to get it, kind of thing. But I thought it was fine. I thought we didn't really get. When we did the event and Cole dragged the dummy facing forward, I don't think anybody thought we were allowed to do that.
Right.
Because nobody specifically asked, and everything we had been shown and told was all reverse drag. So we were told we were allowed to pull him from the vest, but they still showed it as a reverse drag. So I actually I think everybody thought that the movement was just a reverse drag.
Yeah.
So Cole moved super fast through that, and good for him. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, better to beg forgiveness than ask permission, I guess. I bet you had he asked, they probably would have said no, and we all would have had to do it first drag. But because it was fine, which is sweet. So that was fine. The rope climbs were super easy. The run was not as bad as people thought, I think, and maybe expected. The obstacle course was fine. It's fun. It was different with the weight vest for sure. Like some things like going up that hard wall with the rope was challenging just to do that last little roll over the top.
Yeah.
The cargo net, same thing. And like the rope transfer and the rope swing, because you're a bit top heavy and your weight sits differently. Those like very fine, like fine motor skill and coordination of movements where you especially for the guys who did it before with no vest, it was different. Like you had to move a little bit differently. And I think that's what happened to Matt and I both, is we went to do the exact same thing that we did the last year to go over the wall, where we just you roll over and then you bounce off the wall and then you drop. And we both kind of did the same thing. And when we came in, whether or not you were just hanging a little bit lower, I think also because they allowed 2 people to be on the rope at the same time. So if I was on my way down, someone could be coming up. So the cargo net's being pulled as well from another direction. I think a combination of a few different factors just slightly change it. So I think we both just when we did the hang and bounce, when we came back, we just hooked the heel and didn't really notice it. Maybe just because you have the extra weight on you and whatever. And then just we both just let go and fully ate shit. So that was kind of scary, and I think the rest of the obstacles were the same. The rope swing and then the rope transfers and stuff, you kind of your weight sits differently. So those are a little bit harder with the weight vest, or just different. And then the run back was fine. The drag at the end was really hard. I thought the rope climbs at the end were fine, but the drag was tough at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, those falls were tough. I think Matt got super lucky because he kind of tangled himself back up, and it not only it broke his fall, and it didn't like break his leg or anything, which was a super potential hazard. Like if you get a foot through there and then you fall upside down, like that could snap you really fast. So, but instead it kind of grabbed him and then he came loose again, and it sort of just gently sent him on the ground. Probably scared the shit out of him. But it's
yeah.
But and then I wasn't quite so lucky. I just went straight off the top. I landed like right on my side. I was like, that rung my bell pretty bad. I had to like, it took me a second to, my judge right away was hilarious. She like jumped over and like, are you okay? And I was like, tried to get up and go right away, but I would like kind of got the wind knocked out of me. But it was sort of one of those situations where we were in the middle of an event, and I don't know if you've probably had the wind knocked out of you at some point in your life.
Yeah.
But it's like one of the most helpless feelings you can possibly have. Horrible. And you just kind of can lay there and you're like, and it's just, frankly, it's like helpless and embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that. So I tried to just like get up and like get going on those hop logs. And I mean, normally you jump across, like you go like half and half with your jumps. And I think I stepped like 5 times on it. I was like tiptoeing across, trying to just get my breath back and figure out what to do. And then, I don't know how I got through the next 2 very cleanly, but I did. And then I kind of like, I think it was like halfway back on the run before I was really like getting back together and feeling like I was running again and like starting to get like the lights were coming back on. But, yeah. And then I just wanted to get out of there. I was like, just get to the finish line and you can lay down and assess the damage. But like you got like 2 more minutes of work to do. So that was tough. That one really, really, really fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And it was bad. The whole run back too, I had like blood in my mouth and sand, and it was just like not a comfortable feeling. Like, yeah.
I guess that's what he wanted, right? That's what Castro wanted. He wanted an easy obstacle course. He wanted people to axe themselves.
Yeah, great times.
Yeah.
But it was good. So got to hang out with Medical after that one.
I think the next most exciting thing for me, like seeing the clean and jerk ladder, is just the weights. Like I'd say, if anything, compared to other years, the actual weights that were in that ladder are just so insane compared to what they have been in the past. And I think, if anything, that showed you how far the sport has come. Like, I don't know, I can't remember when it was, but there was like a clean and jerk. There was a clean ladder back when Jason Kalipa was at the games. I think like Kalipa won or Neil Maddox won or something. But they only I think they only won it around like 315 or 325 or something like that. And that was like part of the second ladder or something. So it's heavy.
I think that clean ladder, I think Neil Maddox cleaned like 355.
Oh, 355.
But it wasn't for speed. Like they were going slowly through the bars.
Yeah. It was like 80. There was like 90-second windows or 60-second windows or something like that.
Yeah. And he had perfect form as well.
Yeah. Perfect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was it for sure. It needs to be that way. Like people are getting super strong. I mean, the tough part with that event was that every single athlete can easily power clean and just push jerk all the bars in the first round. So it became a game of like being frantic. Like it wasn't even about moving well. It was about moving frantically, because you could be one of the only athletes in the field who can even clear the last bar in the last round, but you'll get cut in the first round.
Yeah.
Because you weren't aggressive enough. So you had to be very aggressive and just get out. Cause like, sorry, if you finish 25th, like I think it happened to some people. Like I think Björgvin maybe didn't make the cut in the first round because he just like, you just had to be, there was just that many guys who were frantically moving.
Psycho, yeah.
And that's how you had to do it. It was like grip and rip, like don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And that was like, for me, I mean, after that event 5, I actually went to the hospital after that fall.
Oh, shit.
And had to get like scanned, and I bruised my lung. So
Jesus. You sure that wasn't on the marathon row?
Yeah, no, but that's what, and I was like coughing up blood for like an hour. And then I took a while to get all cleared from that stuff. And they kind of just said like, we don't know how you're going to feel. So like, keep us posted. And I was happy about that event because it wasn't like I feel like those two events at the end of Friday were not very high heart rate, high breathing rate kind of events.
Yeah.
So I sort of like giving myself some time to just like get reorganized and regroup. So that one was like, it was fast, but you were done right away. And like, maybe your heart races a bit, but you're not like exhausted, and it's not for a long period of time. So yeah. And I think that was the crux of it, was that you just had to make sure you got past the first round. And then like the second round was just do whatever your capacity is. Like some guys can power clean and jerk all those bars. Some guys can't. You just need to like figure out where you lie, because if there's only top 5 coming out of the second round, then probably you're not making it to the last round.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're like one of those guys who's going to do all of those bars in less than a minute. We looked at it and we're like, you basically need to do the whole second round in less than a minute, and then you'll make the finals. But if not, like if you're not like a 50-second guy, then you're not making it. Yeah. So for me, it was like, well, I don't even think I'll power clean the first 2. I might not the third, and then the last 2 I'm going to squat. So chances are I'm not even close to the final. So it's just like, try to not miss, be clean, and just place yourself as well as you can in that like 15th or better range, right? So I mean, you've got enough. You kind of like, you're good now that you're inside that top 20, and then now it's just like you just have to like lay up, just lay up for whatever points you can get.
Yeah.
Because if you do something stupid, you'll take 20th. But and there's no point, because like for me, even doing something stupid, I'm not taking top 5 in that, so it doesn't matter, and I won't make the final anyway. And then I don't have to lift those last few bars either, so I can save myself for the night. But yeah. It's cool to see, man. Like, those guys who could move those weights that easily are impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good for me. I just kind of like, I was actually in a heat with like Alex Anderson and Rasmus Anderson and some guys that were pretty strong. So I finished second. Zeke Grove won our heat, but I beat those other guys. So I think I felt like I played it as well as I could. And I think I took like 11th or something like that, or 12th. Yeah. So that's like pretty good for me, I think, based on my capacity. If it was a mandatory squat, clean, and jerk, would have been a better event for me.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a really strong power clean relative to my squat clean, especially, and like relative to the rest of the field. So whereas like someone like Brent is the opposite. The fact that you were allowed to power clean made that event miles better for him. Yeah. Because his squat range is so long, and his like heavy squat endurance isn't the best. But it's like, if he doesn't have to squat, all right. Like, I think he powered all the bars probably in the first 2 rounds. So it just depends. And like that, based on what the event was, I think that's about as good a finish as I could have hoped for. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that I played very well. I was like smart and a little bit conservative, I think, coming back from that crash. And then I just like tried to be smart and make sure that everything was still working. Yeah. It went, I think, well enough. So that was sort of all I could hope for there.
Yeah. I think the only thing that happened that was unexpected from that clean and jerk ladder was just Matt Fraser missing the last bar twice in the second round. Yeah. I don't know if you witnessed that or if you saw that, but it's very rare that you see him fail like that, and especially at something that he's so good at, which people almost expect him to win.
Yeah. I mean, that was just like, he was a bit more frantic than he needed to be. I mean, if you asked him about it, he was in a heat, and his heat had, I think, Tim Paulson and Scott Panchik, who were also guys who ended up advancing to the top 5. Yeah. So I think in his heat, he had the illusion that he was moving slowly because the 2 guys next to him were moving so fast. And he was like, fuck, these guys are right on my heels. Like, I must not be moving fast enough. So he just like, he went too fast. And I think he was on the last bar at 30 seconds. And the fastest time up to then was like 52. Yeah. Like, he just didn't need to do that, but he didn't know that he didn't need to do that because he couldn't see the clock where he was. And he just like, these other guys were coming up on his heels. So I think he just panicked a little bit and pulled quick. And I think even with the first miss, he still would have been fine. It was the second one that hurt him. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I mean, it's nice to see that happen to him, frankly, every now and then. Like, because I sure as hell was doing a lot of that this weekend. So yeah, it's nice to know that. But I mean, it's rare that you see that because he's usually pretty smart about things like knowing where the clock is and knowing the times and whatever. So I think that that's probably most likely to happen to him in an event that he's really, really strong at, something like a weightlifting event like that, where he's so powerful, so fast and that sort of stuff that he doesn't think about it maybe. Whereas in another event where it's stuff that, even if it's stuff he's great at, but it's stuff that he's had to learn to be great at in the last couple of years, he thinks about it more. So I think it's the same as like sometimes if I'm doing muscle ups or handstand walks, like I don't think at all. And like I'll fall on some handstand walks just because I was being lazy. And it's like, I think it's maybe the same thing as you just sort of, these are some skills that are so deeply rooted that he doesn't really think about it. And he still should. And that's when those mistakes kind of happen, I think. And I'm sure if you asked him, he'd say that, yeah, he just sort of like, he got caught up racing when he didn't need to race.
Yeah.
Like the race was in the last round and he was racing in the second last round, right?
Yeah. That's fair analysis. Yeah, cool. And then obviously there was the Fibonacci. I mean, most people saw how that went. It was, I mean, slightly different from last year, but you know, you got
not for us. Oh, you mean how it went?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it was good. It was a good finish.
It was good. It was nice. I think the Fibonacci was another like event of the weekend where I felt a turn in like the tide of how I was feeling and how I remember when we were doing that. Jeff said parallel handstand push-ups are not my forte. Like I've got to push really far, but deadlifts are fine as we've seen. And well, for me, it was like I've done a lot of work on the parallel handstand push-ups, and I think that it was like a good chance to show that I had improved on something. And so I was a little bit conservative in my handstand push-ups, but I think I made the right decisions. And I finished them just like shortly behind Matt. And I think that when I finished that, I could really hear that the crowd was like pumped. And then when we got to the kettlebells and then he advanced to the walking lunge and took off. And like when I finished my last set of kettlebells and got to the deadlifts and got to the smaller kettlebells, like I could really feel the momentum shift in the crowd. And like they were cheering for me like hard. So that was cool. And I think I think that that's the first time I've ever noticed that in competition. Like last year, I don't think there was any moments like that where I felt like I could really feel it. And the year before or at regionals or anything like that. So that was cool. And I think it was cool to feel like, I mean, the crowd wanted Matt to have a race, right? And it felt like, you know, like they picked me as their guy to be their horse and race. So that was cool. That was like a really, really cool feeling. And that's kind of what stands out for me in that event. Obviously in the lunge, I wasn't going to catch him in the lunge, and I just took a couple of smart breaks to make sure that I finished well. And I think I took 4th in that event, but that's a good strong finish. And it was a good way to finish the day. And like, particularly again, after like I took a bad spill and had a bit of a scare, and then it was nice to come back and feel like people were rallying behind me and being like, fuck, you can't kill this guy. Like, let's go. Like, and it was good. And to finish on a strong finish like that felt really good. So I felt really good ending on Friday, actually.
Nice.
And that was a cool event. And it was cool. I mean, it played out basically the same as the year before. I feel like Dave was probably disappointed again. We're going to have to do that again next year because
until you get it right.
Yeah. So anyway, it is what it is. It's a very, very, very highly skilled programmed workout. Like those deficit parallel handstand push-ups are like 14 inches. Like it's ridiculous. Watch all the guys' elbows just like block and try to press. It's an insane deficit. So I think it's just a super over-programmed workout.
With this point, I mean, you're halfway. Majority in terms of like time under tension, the amount of like minutes you have left exercising is far, like you're 50% through the weekend, but you're like well over 50% in terms of how much time you'll be working out for. How did your body feel?
I think that's just because the row skews everything.
I know, yeah. But did you feel like good at this point?
I did feel pretty good, actually. I think Saturday, I'm trying to think how I felt Saturday morning. My legs were like a little more tired than I expected. I don't know why. I think maybe from having to bike on the smaller bike, and I trashed my quads. But I remember thinking my legs were tired and we hadn't done any squatting, and I was just kind of confused. Everyone's pull was tired and like my triceps were a little tired, but all in all, I felt pretty good. I actually slept pretty well that night, going into Saturday. So that would have been maybe like the best sleep I had all games. So I don't know. I was good. I felt not too bad. What did we start with on Saturday?
Madison Triplus or Triplus.
Oh, right. So that's one where I'm not the best swimmer. Like I'm not the best guy in the water, but looking at it, I was like, 500 swim. I've gotten much better. I just didn't want to, again, after that fall and knowing that like the doctor had warned me that my lung capacity might be a little bit less, just because there's blood in there. And so I was concerned a little bit. Those last two workouts were not sustained aerobic pressure, but this one was.
Yeah.
This is a 30-minute aerobic piece. So I was like a little concerned going in that there was going to be some effects from that. And I was a little bit concerned going to bed that I was going to wake up and basically the only way that got through Friday was just was riding adrenaline. And like I was going to wake up Saturday and feel like I just got smashed. Right. And I was sore. But I mentioned it in an interview. Like I felt like I took a big hit. Like if you've ever played a sport and got like a suicide pass and just got smashed, like
hospital pass, suicide pass, yeah.
That's what I felt like. So, and that's fine. Like I've played those sports before too, and like I wasn't unfamiliar with that feeling. Then there was no sort of weird new feeling that was scary. Like I've never felt this before, so I thought I was all right. I figured I would go and be conservative in the swim, and just come out and then try to close a little bit on the paddle and on the run, and just try to be like, I was hoping for a middle of the pack finish, and that's what I got. It's good for me because I mean, compared to the last 2 years in the swim events, that's 15 places better. Like, so the drastic improvement. It's movement in the right direction, and for me, that was good. As I just sort of like, I needed to get through that event, feel like I was still healthy, and improve on my swim finish from last year were like the three main things, and I did that just fine. So it was good. I came in and out. It's still, again, I remember last year we had people like walking in the swim, and the people do that again this year. And that just makes me nuts. It makes me so crazy.
What do you mean walking in the swim? You mean walking in and out of the water?
Like literally they're in the water, walking, doing like swimming motions because they can touch the ground.
Waiting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you'd have people like porpoise diving, like doing like their dives, like shallow water diving.
Yeah.
For probably the first 150 meters of the event.
Oh, really?
Because the first turn was like kind of parallel to the shoreline. So anyone who was outside on like the outside lane, like whatever, would be people just walking like crazy. I was like spotting to the right, like I was breathing to the right, and I would look at people just like half out of the water. I was like, man, come on. It's a swim event. Have some integrity.
Yeah. And they're going the same pace, right? Like they're not at a disadvantage.
Basically, but you're just like, you're saving your swim for them when you get closer and you round that corner, you can probably just swim a little harder than the guys who already swam 100 meters.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like, I thought that maybe they would set the track up differently this year so people wouldn't be able to do that. But they didn't. So anyway.
They're just fuming.
It's probably difficult with
that. It was fine. I mean, the paddleboard was fun. Obviously, like the guys who really knew how to do it crushed it. And I passed a few people on that. That was a fun new thing to play with, though. It's always nice at the games to play on some new stuff. So it was cool. Burned up your back really bad, but I would basically take like a few big strokes and then just tuck my arms in and coast for a bit and like rest my back.
Yeah.
And that worked fine. I think I reeled in like 5 guys on the paddle probably, and then I had 2 guys on the run. So it was good. Like I said, I did everything I needed to do on that to satisfy myself, and make myself feel like I'm not getting any worse at swimming. I'm not dying. Yeah. But it's still, I mean, there's lots of work to do, but at least it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So that was good. Kind of a fun event. I heard Ethan Helbig, when he came across at the end of that, he swallowed a bunch of water or like breathed it in at some point. And then apparently he was coughing up blood also for like like an hour after the event. So lots of people's lungs getting messed up.
Yeah. Seems like everyone could probably learn a few things from Tia in that event. Didn't she beat everyone by like
2 minutes?
2 minutes, 3 minutes?
Oh yeah,
Guys and girls. Yeah. Yeah.
go figure.
She's a
Yeah.
monster. Yeah. Yeah. After that, you had you had Chaos, which I think for all the events this year was probably my favorite in just the style that it had to be. And I've always dreamt of a workout like that at the CrossFit Games. It was cool that it finally came out. And yeah, you did obviously exceptionally well in that event.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we thought it maybe would be worse for spectators than it was. We thought maybe they wouldn't be able to know what was going on, or I don't know. But it seems like everything I've heard from people is that they really enjoyed it. But it was a cool event. I think some of the athletes didn't like it because once you at the end knew what all the work was, the general consensus was they were like, I think I could have done better in it. But almost everybody says that. So, I mean, at some point, somebody would have had to have done worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody doesn't want to think it was them, right? But, like, I don't know. I think that there was more strategy in that event than people think. Everyone's like, oh, it was just like you had to just go and, like, gut it out and just – I talked to a few people that are good at some of those movements, and they were frustrated because they thought, like, it was basically like gambling. Like you had to just gamble. Do I go hard here or do I pace it? And if you guessed wrong, you got screwed. And it was basically just one big guessing game. And that's not what it was. If it was only one movement, then that's what it would have been. Like if you had an assault bike in front of you and the whole event was like, you have unknown calories on this assault bike, go.
Yeah.
Do you hammer it? Yeah. Do you go super fast? Do you go super slow because you have 100? Like if that was the test, then yes, that was a guessing game. And if you guessed right, you were rewarded. But it wasn't. It was like 6 different movements. And the way that you had to play that game is you needed to move at a pace that you were comfortable at where you're still moving like fast enough. Like you're moving fast, but it's a sustainable effort. And then as soon as one person finishes, now you can go fast. Because that person probably was not moving twice as fast as you were moving.
Yeah.
Like probably when they finish, you've got like 5 reps left. So you can just like hit those 5 reps and you can look at what they're doing now. So then when you transition, you don't have to listen to your judge saying like, all right, now you got to do a burpee down here. Make sure both hands touch the strap. Go. Like you already know that's what you're doing. So you can walk over and start, and your transition speed is faster than the other athletes were. So now I can probably move a little bit, either a little bit slower or sustain at whatever pace. And if you do that and you stay near the top 5, once we got to the box jumps, they told us you have 25 box jump overs and then you pull the sled to the finish. And so at that point, you just do whatever you can do and you try to pass those guys that you've been just spotting off of for the last 10 minutes. And like that's how you had to do that event, is you actually had to be smart. It's super easy to like know the workout and know the events and be like, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm bad at, and then figure out a strategy for yourself. That doesn't actually take that much intelligence to do. But you actually have to be smart to be like, okay, you're going. I'm on the skier. Okay, like Con Porter advances to the next thing. Okay, fuck, like how was Con skiing really fast? You have to think really fast and be like, okay, well, what's likely? Do I have like 10 calories left or like 5 calories left? Like, probably more like 5. And so you just like do whatever you have left, and you can start to, you still have to wait for your judge to say stop. You can't anticipate how many calories it is, but probably you can up your intensity and then advance and then be a little faster in that transition. So you're still only like, you're probably less reps behind than you were when he finished.
Right.
And then start the next thing. Just be smart, conservative. Next guy moves ahead of you. Like I think Cole Sager advanced on the burpees before I did. And then like I just watched him pick up the dumbbell. What's he going to do? Okay, overhead squat. So then as soon as I got advanced, I ran over and started doing overhead squats. And my transition was probably 3 seconds faster than his was. So you can just like slowly let them pull out and then close the gap really fast. And then I knew that what else are we going to do with that box jump, but do box jump overs, like that big box, like what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
So clearly the last 2 movements were a box jump over and a sled pull. So, I mean, I'm a really good jumper. So I knew that I could close some gap on that there. So basically we had to squat and do pistols. So you tire everybody's legs out and then make them jump. And I think a lot of people struggle with that more than I did.
Right.
And so, yeah, like you just kind of do it and pick a tempo and try to keep turning around and jumping until you have like 10 left, and then just like gut it out and then get on the sled. And just those things, once they start moving, it was the same as the snail in 2016. Once you get it moving, you just can't stop, because starting and moving is the hardest part.
Right.
So that was, it was a cool event. It was kind of fun. And again, I think there was like generally a lot of bitchiness about how it went and how people thought about it. But I mean, obviously I thought it was cool because I did well. And
because you won.
Yeah. I thought it was like an interesting idea. And I think the movements that they picked were appropriate, because even given the example that I gave before of like an assault bike, if you put some things like that in there, you significantly change the event.
Yeah.
And so like, let's say that was the first movement, was assault bike unknown calories at the start line. And there's 5 other movements. What do you do? Like, am I doing 50 calories or am I doing 15 calories? Because that is a significant difference. And if you just guessed right, you could pick up a full minute.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But like, the movements were very appropriate, where nothing was like that drastically different from person to person. I mean, like Brent didn't have to jump to do the burpees, and like he probably barely had to jump to do the box jumps, but he had to move really far in the squats and the pistols.
Yeah.
So it's balanced out. So I don't know, it was cool. And I mean, we got to play with a new kind of implement and a new style of workout. I think we'll see that probably there'll be people who program events like that now, for whatever, maybe like the next year, you'll see that'll become very, very stylish.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a novel new way to program. But it was cool. And like I said, I was impressed and surprised at how much people said they really enjoyed it. Because I thought there would be more, I mean, confusion and chaos in the crowd as well, like not knowing what's going on. But I guess
it was good. It was a great event. You then the next one was like the crowd voted on the bi-couplet event. It was cool to see like Willie, and obviously he's a teammate of yours in a way, like do exceptionally well on that event.
That was incredible, actually.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where you were saying, Raf, how it's just like all of a sudden, like 2 events back to back, very short, had just sort of become like so heavily weighted.
200 points
same thing.
Is a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's basically the same test.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like the same guy won them basically, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It is, however, like if you play on one hard, chances are you'll fall off a little bit on the second one. So I think some people did try to play that a little bit. But it depended. I actually kind of wanted to see the heavy one first.
Okay.
Because I think it would have been interesting to see, or sorry, the heavy one second, rather the light one first. We did do the heavy one first, but it would have made the first one, it would have made the heavy one less exciting, because people wouldn't be like ripping out touch and goes or doing whatever. But it would have flattened people on the first one. Everyone would have gone like unbroken touch and goes. Yeah. People would have failed their grip way worse in that one, doing that one first, and then going back to do a heavy bar, like a heavier bar and a more technical gymnastic skill with like 0 grip and way worse fatigue. I think it would have been, you would have seen some gutsy shit going on in that next one if you had done it the opposite way.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw Tim Paulson fly off the bar too, which was amazing. I think you would have seen more of that, or like the people who are really exceptionally technically good at bar muscle ups would have really had a chance to shine with their efficiency over other people who can really just gut them out. It wasn't that many. So that was the order I would have rathered see. I think that it would have separated the more exceptional athletes from the rest of the pack in the second part. But man, it was hard. It was pretty wild. I thought we'd see more like rounded back muscle snatches and stuff in the second one. But people were actually pretty smart. I mean, whether it was just because of that row and people didn't want to gamble on it, but there wasn't as much of that as I was maybe expecting. And it was hard. Like my grip was toast at the end, and everybody was saying the same thing. You came across to do those like 9 chest to bars and like you think you're there, but it took like 3 sets to do 9. So that was pretty cool. They were cool events. That was like classic CrossFit, right? So a lot of this year's programming wasn't, which I think is cool. I think it's cool that they're exploring new things, and the opportunities they have in Madison are providing us with the ability to do a lot of cool new stuff and different stuff. Because I mean, we test a lot of that classic CrossFit in the open and the regionals and whatever. So it's important to maybe have 1 or 2, like one of those in there a day, but it is neat that we're getting to test some very different stuff and really use the venues to their maximum potential. But yeah, that was just like, that was classic CrossFit for like the OGs.
Yeah.
So.
Got to have some of that in there. That surely pulling up the next day on day 4, I guess, surely the elbows at that point, I'm thinking all the stroking from the rowing, and then those 2 events to finish, all the eccentrics, the high power gymnastics. You have the elbow fatigue, like the bicep, like with straightening the arms super stiff.
I only did on the left side, and I kind of had it all week, since that was the side that cramped up for me more on the row, and I was kind of feeling it all week, so it wasn't much worse. I mean, it was what it was, and we were pulling the sled again in the morning. So I initially I slept like shit on Saturday night. Slept really poorly and like didn't feel really good in the morning. So I was a little worried about that run bike sled event. Something that I think I normally would do quite well in. The times were pretty tight. I finished farther back than I would have liked. I think I maybe could have held a little bit faster pace on the bike or the run, and should have. But I remember starting that event and thinking that to avoid wrecking my biceps like that, because they had already announced that there would be a pegboard later, like Dave posted on Instagram.
Yeah.
I was going to try to do like long double arm pulls and let the sled kind of coast. But the turf didn't really allow that. It would really stop the sled immediately. So you kind of had to do that hand over hand pull and jack your arms up a little bit more than I think. But Brent and I had the same thought. We talked about it before the event. And then on the first sled, we just like realized it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
We're like, oh shit, like now I got to do way more work. So that was a cool event though. I mean, that was like a grindy workout, and it was cool to see Lucas come out so hard and like hang on to that, because I mean he needed that, and he and Brent both smashed that event, and they were the guys who needed the points.
Yeah.
And that was like epic shit. And I think we watched Lucas on this, I think the second round he was like 20 seconds ahead, and we were like, oh man. I was just thinking it was like doing the Madison triplet all over again. And I remembered last year in something like that, the second or third round, it was like Ricky, then me, then Matt, and Ricky was like 30 seconds ahead, right? Like we were like, dude, there's no way. The only way it's going to be possible to catch him is if he completely self-destructs. And like, this is a pace that is absolutely not sustainable, and he's just out of his mind.
Yeah. And
I remember thinking the same thing, like hearing about Lucas leaving the stadium while I was still pulling my sled. And I was like, man, he's either going to be so far ahead of this thing, or he's going to crash and burn like in the most spectacular fashion. But I was like, either way, like I can't go that fast. It doesn't matter. So it's just like, whatever, it is what it is. Like go jog it out and then try to get back and hold a reasonable wattage on your bike. But yeah, he smashed it. He did an absolutely amazing job, and in a super clutch situation, as it turns out, because that ended up being the tiebreak between those two guys, right? So it was going to be one of the two of them who won that event, and it was Lucas, and that was what made the difference.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, there's a million spots over the weekend that make the difference. Like in a tie, there is no tie if like this mistake or that mistake or this whatever doesn't get made, but it made that event super epic for sure. But that was a tough one. It was hot too. It was so hot. People were dying out there. I remember finishing and just like crawling like the gates that were the I don't know, like the fans are all behind it, were basically like at the end of the field, and there was like a tiny shadow cast like right by the gate. Everybody would roll up and like lay against the gate because it was the only shade around. It was like all these bodies pressed right against the wall, trying to just get in the shade and like dump water on themselves. But that was a cool event. That was a really cool one.
I remember that. That was like when they did Murph in like the first year. Everyone was finishing, and then there was like that big, like there was the barricade, and like people were crawling underneath it and hiding underneath it as like medical staff were coming out. It's good to know that the heat's still a factor there. I just wanted to come back to your shit sleep. Is it? I'm sure it's a multitude of factors, but is it because you're in a new environment, or is it because you lie there so tired that you just can't sleep? Because sometimes that is the thing. People are so fatigued that they actually can't enter into sleep because their body like isn't well recovered enough to allow them to sleep. What is it?
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, I got to look into it. I had the same problem at regionals. I didn't sleep very well, and I just like, whether it's just some sort of stress and some things like that, like through the competition, I'm not sure. I mean, at that point, I'd moved into second, and I was like, okay, like, got one more day to just like work and finish second. Like that's what you have to do. And I'm generally pretty relaxed with that stuff, but like my mind can get racing a little bit. And I don't know. I mean, a couple of those days we came out of the venue quite late, and I tried to spend a little bit of time with my family in the evening and have dinner with them. So where a lot of athletes might be going home and just like trying to shut it down and go to sleep right away, I generally didn't. I was probably not in bed till midnight almost every night because I just like, I don't live near my family, and my girlfriend was there and I don't live near her either. And I have very few opportunities to spend time with my family. And I think that I sometimes at the games, when they make a point of coming out every year, I want to try to at least get a meal in with them every day and like spend a little bit of time with them. So each day we'd usually, in the morning I wouldn't see them, but in the evening after the events, we'd kind of try to catch up and have dinner. So I ended up just being later than I wanted, eating later than I wanted. I think that stuff played a factor. And yeah, like probably a little bit of stress and a little bit of, I don't know, yeah, I'm not sure. Like it's just like a little bit of the new environment maybe too, but I'm not sure. It's tough to know. There's a lot of factors at play, but I definitely didn't. I maybe got 4 hours of sleep, like maybe.
Oh, that's rough. That is rough.
So,
Lucky you weren't doing anything hard. So going into the handstand walk, surely when that got announced, you were like, this is Pat Vellner's event of all the events that weekend.
no, not really, actually. The problem now is I don't train handstand walks, and there are guys like you've got guys like Cody Anderson, Alex Smith, guys who are just as good, if not better than I am at handstand walks. But I don't. I've spent the last couple of years I'm not working on that stuff so I can get better at other things.
Right.
And I just look at that and I know exactly what that event is. It's highly technical. When they introduced the parallel bars, I was like, great, I'm not going to struggle on that at all. I've done those before many times. I know exactly how to do it, how it's going to feel. And a lot of guys just don't because they've never touched it. So that to me was a bit of an advantage. I just it's an execution thing. Like one error can cost you a lot in those events. So yeah, I looked at it. I'm like, this is an event that I can beat the guys who are chasing me at. So I was like, you better do it because especially before they had announced the last one, I was like, you don't know what the last one is. So you better make sure you generate a bit of a point spread. And as it happens, I did very poorly in that event compared to what I should have done. And I think that was partly just being a little bit too frantic. And I did my double unders and then I like put my rope back and I kicked up over the line without thinking. So I had to come back. And then I planned on doing like breaking after the ramp, doing the turns on the ramp and then doing the steps. And I just had one fumble on the steps, like folded a finger over, no problem, it happens. And I came back and I saw that Brent had fallen too. And I was like, okay, like I think that we were all kind of stuck in the same spot and very well aware of what was at stake. So my shoulders weren't bad. So I just kind of kicked up again and went for it. And I had lost my head somewhere. I think I was just like, I was thinking too far ahead and I was a little bit I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. I was thinking about what it was for and what it was worth.
Right.
So I just the second time I fell on the stairs twice, I think. The first time was just a fumble. And the second time I got up the stairs and I fully stepped and like ghosted the step because I expected there to be a ramp. I was like, I forgot it was steps and steps. And I just totally like a stupid no brain execution error. and I like almost stepped and like hyperextended my elbow, missing because I just like like when you walk up the stairs in the dark,
Yeah.
you step and you think that there's going to be another step and there's not. Like that's just what it was, and it just like panicked me, and I just buckled and fell, and then went back around again. And I was like, you just missed 2 in a row. Like you can't stand around. You have to go.
Yeah.
And then I got it, but it was just sloppy execution, and that sort of stuff doesn't make you feel very good. But as soon as I got past that, doing the ramp and the parallel was no problem. So I just kicked up and did that again, and it was fine. And I mean, I think I was like 10th, but 10th or 11th or something like that. But that's like, again, that shouldn't be a 10th or 11th place finish for me. It was the same as the muscle ups. Like I said, execution error where you make a little mistake, and I'm usually pretty good at not letting that stuff get to me. But I think at the point of the competition that it was, I knew what was going on and what it was worth. And I kind of I just was dumb about it. And so like lesson learned, like I don't do that very often, and I probably won't again. But yeah, so that was fine. I mean, I did finish ahead of Brent and Lucas, which was good for my standing.
Yeah.
Not by enough to make the last event mean nothing, but it was good. I mean, I think when I finished that event, I was fairly certain that I had taken second place. It was going to be hard to not take second place.
Yeah.
I'd have to like completely bomb the last event, and it was fine. Like I got up on the platform, and Matt was pretty pumped, and like he's been kind of, that day was like talking to me about like, dude, like you need to do this, and was kind of in my ear about some stuff, and he wanted me to do well and finish second, I think. So he was pumped for me, and he was like, sweet, we can set up for this last event. And the last event was super fun. Like I think that was a cool event to do. I was a little concerned, like you were asking about before, with like the bicep stuff.
Yeah.
And all we had done is pull all week. Like
Yeah.
we just pulled and pulled and pulled every single day. So I haven't been doing a lot of pegboards lately, and I'd only just recently started doing them like touch and go, kind of up and down. And the board I have is different, like in most places, because it's pushed out from the wall a little bit, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's been a long time that I haven't done one like the one at the games. It had been since 2016 in the final. So, and we didn't have any in the warm-up area to practice on. So I was kind of like, that stuff gets in your head a little bit. And I was like, like your biceps are pretty sore. Like you've got this kind of cramp still in your arm, and like your pull's pretty jacked up, and you haven't used this pegboard in a long time. Like maybe you could blow this event up. And I'm like, it's probably fine. And I kept like, I keep telling myself, like, dude, it's fine. Like you're fine. You have to do 5 pegboards and like 40 light thrusters and then move a heavy yoke. It's no big deal. Like none of that stuff in and of itself is super challenging. So
yeah,
it was good. When we started, I was talking to Matt again before we started, and he's like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to be conservative, or are you going to go for it? And I was like, I'll go for it. Like, I'll either do 3 and 2 on the pegboard, or I'll try to go 5. And he's like, yeah, same with me. I got to see how slippery it is, but we'll see how it is. And so I ended up doing 4, and then it was getting pretty hard at the bottom coming down. So I just like stopped at 4, took a quick rest, did my last one. And I think it was a smart move. My last one was like, I had to take a couple smaller steps.
Yeah.
But once I was off the pegboard, like it was over. The work was pretty easy. Just did like a couple sets on the thrusters, like a quick drop, and just chill. And then I had some fun moving the yoke, because I went to go load my weight. My plate ran away and rolled like 5 lanes the other direction.
Oh, fuck.
And like I loaded after the first weight. Did you see the video of that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, it's fucking hilarious. So it just was like the epitome of what my weekend was like just lots of little hiccups and small mistakes that totally like my fault, like bad stuff that happens that I needed to be a little bit more deliberate in what I was doing.
Right.
Like the bike and the net and the whatever, like stuff that like I could have made that better. And I just didn't. And I like was loading after we moved the first yoke. It was 35-pound plates. And so I basically was just like, what I'm going to do, because you have to come in from the back of the yoke. Everybody was loading the front, or loading the back and then loading the front and then coming back around, or doing weird things. So I was like, I'm just going to take the top 2 plates off the stack, toss them to the back, load the front, walk back, load the back, and then I'm back on the yoke and I'm gone.
Yeah.
So I grab the top 2 plates and I just do like a little shovel over, and the one plate flips up and it starts rolling. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I kind of saw it in the corner of my eye, and it did one of those like half wobbles at first.
Yeah.
And I was like, sit down. Like, I'm sure it's going to stop. It's going to stop rolling. And then I just like, so I loaded the front too. And when I looked back, it was like 3 lanes away. Like, it had rolled like super far. And so I was just like, fucking hell. Like, I had to get up. And fortunately, the other guys in those lanes hadn't started on their yoke yet. But I just like ran like 5 lanes over, picked up my plate, ran back, threw it on the yoke. And I just like, it was funny because I think at that point of the workout, I knew it didn't matter. But it was just funny. It was like, man, I'm having a week here. And we talked about it afterwards with Michelle, my coach, and she's just like, you need to focus more on that stuff. Like, I feel like this week you made a lot of little errors and just like equipment placement. Like, when I was dragging the dummy over the line and I turned him and his hand flipped out and his hand touched the line. And so technically he hadn't fully crossed the line, even though I pulled him like 10 feet past. And just like, I had to go back and move him again. Right. Like, I had on the sled where like it was like, it looked to me like it was across from over top, but from where the judge was from the back, they're like, no, you got to pull it again. And I had already started running.
Yeah.
Like, I made a lot of like little errors like that cost me like 5 to 10 seconds in several events. And it's just like, I'm glad it didn't matter in the end, but like, it was very poor execution on my part in a lot of things. And like the handstand walk was another one. Like, there's probably 6 events where it made a big difference. And it just like, I don't know, coming out of the event, it doesn't feel good. Like, I know that sort of stuff, you tighten up a couple of things like that, and it's a much better event. It's a better race. I still don't win by no means, but I think first and second are farther away from third place. Like, I definitely would have had a lot, and I would have been happier with my competition as a whole. But anyway, it was just funny. That was just like the icing on the cake, right? It was the last event, and I was like, man, of course. Like, of course.
Yeah.
It's like, there's some good video. I'm sure you wouldn't have trouble finding it if you wanted to look for it, but
I'm sure we'll find it.
I think in the main feed, they're showing Matt because he's in the lead. And it's like, as he's loading his plates to go move for the last weight, you just see me run across the back chasing the plate. Oh, it's funny. But so that was good. I mean, Brent came up and we pushed on each other at the end there, and then we got to the finish, and it was good. Like, I knew that I'd solidified the deal, and it was fun. I gave Matt a big hug, and it was sweet. He congratulated me. We weren't sure on Brent because when he finished, and then Lucas was still out there, we talked for a bit. I'm like, man, this is going to be tight. And it made it very, very exciting and interesting. But, I mean, he was happy with his effort, I think, in the end. And that's what, even like I said, all these little mistakes, everybody's got them. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no athlete in the field that I think walks away and says, like, I had a perfect run. Yeah. And so that's just stuff that, there's lots of little lessons to learn and things I can take away. And I mean, I'm happy that I was able to rally from all the shit that happened, and I was able to be successful in the end. But it's certainly, there's a lot of work to be done, and it's clear. So it was good. I mean, I'm happy. Like I said, I'm happy with how things turned out.
Yeah, man. Well, it was awesome to watch, and obviously being an alumni of the My Muscle Project, we were very proud.
Thanks, guys.
I suppose we'll wrap with one question that I think probably everyone wants to know. I mean, there were a lot of questions in there. Fikowski had something about like you starring as like Mr. Magoo or something in the next.
I saw that. That's a good chirp. That's a pretty good chirp. I'm impressed with that. And that's because of all my clumsiness of like the dummy, the sled, the plate, the like handstand walk, the bikes. Like, I just was like, it's clumsy all over. I was all over the competition floor. It was very clumsy.
But I think the one that keeps popping up that most people want to know is that
how many grapes can you fit in your mouth?
How many what?
How many grapes can you fit in your mouth?
I don't know, 30?
There you go.
That's the event. 30 muscle-ups and 30 grapes. 1 grape every muscle-up. Now they want to know, like, has this changed for you? I mean, obviously, when we first spoke, you had done you've done third and third, but I don't know. It's only really been 2 years at the games, and now you're second. You've improved even more, right? Which is more prize money, more attention, and a bigger opportunity to make more out of CrossFit. And you said that chiropractic is by far and away your highest priority. Does this change anything for you? And like what happened to Brent, obviously he gave up his full-time job to take on the athlete opportunity. That's probably there for you now more than ever, right? How do you feel about your ongoing career, and has anything changed?
The reality is that I couldn't change it if I wanted to right now. Like the fact I'm partway into my internship now, which is only a year. It's over in May and then I'm done. So, and I couldn't take the time off now if I wanted to. Like I have to finish the internship year or not. And if I don't, then I just I sacrifice all the internship I've done already.
Of course, yeah, of course.
It's like I'm already part way in. Like I'm just going to see it through and then I'm done. I'm out the other side and I've done what I wanted to do from the beginning. When I graduate, whether or not I start to practice immediately or whether I go somewhere and do some part-time work, I think the processing time for us after we graduate before our license is active is a few months anyways. So good chance after I graduate, I won't practice until at the very earliest after the games regardless. So, and then beyond that, maybe I just do some part-time work to start and try to see this out for another couple of years or until I feel like I'm no longer capable or relevant. But, I think that right now it's almost done. It's a done deal, so that nothing changes as far as that's concerned. I'm going to try to do a few things differently this year since I have some difference in my schedule now that I'm working part-time basically for the whole year. I'm part-time work, part-time school. So I don't know. I'm going to try to roll with the punches and see what comes up. I don't think in the year between now and the Open or the regionals, much changes. Once that regional season, when that's done, I'll basically graduate right around regionals, and then that's when things will change. So they're going to change regardless. So I just have to figure out what I want to do when that time comes, and as that approaches, I'll have a better handle on that. And I think that the second place is great. Again, with all the little things that I did wrong all week, it's very clear that I could have done much better than that. I could have very easily done much better than that. I don't think that my points or my individual event placings is representative of what my capacity was. I think that I had a lot more than I was able to show, which is fine because I finished second, and I think at the end of the day I would have finished second anyways, but I think it would have told a different story in the competition, and that's fine. I mean, I'll have another shot next year, everybody will, but I do think that in second place that's where I belong right now, and I think that I'm very capable of tightening up that race and trying to give us something a little more exciting next year. Because I think it's tyranny right now, and we need to stop it.
Dictatorship, absolutely.
Yeah, frankly, we just need a little bit more of that. And we talked about it at the finish line. A few of the guys there, Björgvin, Brandt, and I, and Lucas, and we were like, "Look, we can do better than this." And I think everybody kind of felt the same way, and so that's good because I've said it before that for us to win, to beat Matt, or to make this race more interesting, like it's been on the women's side, we need everybody to be a little bit better. It's not just one person because there's not enough points. So we need everybody to tighten it up a little bit. And it seems like people are willing. And I mean, everyone's willing right when the games end, right? But it's tough to keep that fire for the next year. And I think that that's going to be the trick. But I don't know. I'm excited. I think that I did what I came to do. I finished second like I was supposed to, and I think that next year is exciting. I'm looking forward to taking on the challenge and trying to tighten that up a little bit because I think I've got more in me for sure.
Nice. Well, I think probably the best way people can serve you is, I know you don't have online programs or anything like that, but supporting Michelle's program, Deca Comp, and following you on Instagram.
She's got a lot of good feedback since the games, that's for sure.
I bet. She's in her era right now. It's her era.
Horvath and Willie George, that was
Crazy.
That was quite the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever secret sauce is in there, people want to find out. And so, yeah. And I mean, obviously, we're going to support you all the way and keep following the journey. And I mean, you'll probably get more opportunities, right, throughout the year to travel and new sponsors and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things unfold. And obviously, like you said, most of it's sort of set in stone already. But the years after that would be really exciting. Really exciting.
We'll see. Hopefully, I'm getting old, guys.
How old are you?
Well, I'm 28.
I'm 28.
How old is Matt?
28.
28. Okay. That's it. You just got to outlast him, Pat.
Oh God.
When are you going to retire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking next year. What about you?
I made that joke when I was leaving drug testing at the end of the games there. It's like, all right, like, great job, everyone. Matt and like Tia and a few people were still in there. And I was like, well, like, it'll be good. We'll come back next year. I'll take second again. And then we'll come back the next year and Matt will retire.
Yeah.
It'll be all good.
Yeah.
But no, I think, frankly, it would feel cheap that way if I didn't at least get to give him like at least one good one where he really had to think about it. I think right now that's the goal. Is like I don't even whatever. Like if you win, you win. But like I don't want it to be a 200-point spread, right? Like I want it to matter. I want the last event to matter. And like I want it to be like a real deal where he's actually got to go for broke and do something on the last day. And I want like the last day to matter. I want the last event to matter. And if until we do that, like it can't. I don't want it to end.
You know what?
Can't retire until I have the chance to do that.
That was like Fraser's first year against Froney. Froney had dominated the 3 years before, like it was already over. And then it was really on that last day when Fraser was pushing him that he had to steal his chalk in the last event to take out the victory. That was the only way. So maybe that's what it's going to take. It's going to take you
want
really
to see some chalk stealing.
Yeah. But we'll be excited for it when it comes around.
All right, appreciate that. One day, one of these days.
That's it, man. All right, Pat, we've taken a lot of your time. I know you want to go watch The Bleeding Edge. I actually don't know. What time is it right now for you?
8, quarter after 8.
All right, you got time.
Make a steak, watch The Bleeding Edge. It's going to be great.
Fantastic. Well, let us know what you think. And thanks so much for being on. We appreciate it. And we'll send it out very soon.
My pleasure, guys.
Thanks, Pat.